Hey guys, doing a sound check here, making sure that everyone can hear me clearly. If you can hear my voice and it sounds all right, can you type in the chat there just so I know that we don't have any audio issues or anything like that? We're going to be getting started with the webinar in the web class in just a second. Um, just type, I can hear you, Sal, or yes in the chat. Okay, cool. Awesome. Sweet. I'm excited. I think we had about maybe 110 people registered for today's web class. So I'm really looking forward to sharing some of the stuff today with you guys. I prepared some slides. I'll also be going through many of your questions, trying to answer them to the best of my ability, making sure that the time you invest with me here today is going to be worth your while. You're going to get a lot out of it. I think from the stuff I'm just sharing alone, it's going to be a really big eye opener for many people out there. To me, crowdfunding is kind of one of those things where it's like it's very in the public eye. People are looking at different campaigns on the media. They've seen them in their Facebook feeds, Instagram. We've seen all of those big financial raises, like people raising 6 figures and 7 figures. Maybe you even like listen to my podcast and you've heard directly from guests that I have on, and they're like, dude, I don't even expect to raise 60 grand, or I had no idea we're going to raise $200,000. I even had $1 million Kickstarter campaigns on my podcast. And they will tell you, quite frankly, that crowdfunding is very different the mainstream considers it versus the way it sort of works behind the scenes. So my kind of goal here, I guess, is to enlighten and share that system that they're using and the things that they're doing behind the scenes in order to cause these big financial raises, and to give you just the inside scoop here of what they're doing, the strategies, the tactics that they have, the all this kind of stuff I want to share today in the web class. And I also invite a lot of the questions because this class is for you. I obviously have stuff that I prepared for you to learn from, some of the lessons that I've learned myself, some of the things that guests have revealed over the years. There's a lot of the things that are very powerful if are done correctly. So I'm going to be sharing that. But at the same time, if you ask questions and you interact in the chat and you share a little bit about who you are, where you're from. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. Well, I guess I wasn't raised there. I was raised in Massachusetts, like a very small suburban town. But right now I'm living in Brooklyn, New York. I'm actually living not too far from the Kickstarter headquarters in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Williamsburg is like the hipster place to be. A lot of people with tattoos and beards. I always say it's kind of hard to distinguish hipsters from homeless people because like they're dressing so trendy that it almost looks like they have like rips in their jeans. The kind of that kind of artist feel in Williamsburg. But that's where Kickstarter is. So I live in Brooklyn, New York. I'd love if you could tell me where you're coming from, and also if you can share any stuff about your project, about what you're raising money for. The last thing I'll say before we get started is my entire goal. I go into a lot of stuff with my content, like psychology. I talk about mindset. That's all very like woo woo, I think. But my goal with this webinar is to help you smash your goal on Kickstarter. I'm not talking about just meeting your fundraising goal. Like that's nice. It's nice to raise the amount that you want, but I'm talking about exceeding that. I'm talking about engineering success, really making it so that you're not only raising $10,000, you're raising $100,000. You're going above and beyond with your fundraising goal. That's the topic of today's webinar. How do you smash your goal on Kickstarter? And what are the proven ways, the proven path to go about doing that? So first thing is first, I usually have very courteous, very great students on my classes. They always get rave reviews. People are very nice. Every once in a while, I will get a troll. So the only thing that I would ask is to be polite and courteous of your fellow students on this class, because people are here to learn. They're here to interact and get their questions answered. So it's difficult to do that if you're doing things like spamming the chat or you're just being rude. I really appreciate it if you keep that in mind and to be polite. And of course, any responses to the questions I ask are encouraged. If you want to share more information about your project, that's always encouraged. Just try to keep it to the topic at hand. And I think we'll have a very smooth web class today. The other thing I just want to outline really quickly before we get started is the main things I'm going to be covering today are everything that I have discovered goes into a killer Kickstarter campaign, a campaign that raises funds and it exceeds your funding goal. So these are things like, how do you get backers? How do you get traffic? How do you market your campaign and get attention? How do you make it so that people actually want to buy or support what it is you're doing on Kickstarter? And Kickstarter can be used for a lot of different things. It can be used for a hardware product, could be used for a design product, could be a book, a board game, theater project, film project, lots of different types of projects on Kickstarter. And they sort of have their own flavor to them, but there are components that go through all of them and commonalities that cause people to say, yes, I want to support that. So I'm going to go through all of that and really what a good campaign strategy looks like. My overall goal, I obviously want you to walk away having very practical strategies and things that you can do in order to raise more funding and more money with Kickstarter. Like that's my overarching goal here. But at the same time, I want you to feel more confident. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't take into account that a lot of launching a new business or a lot of doing crowdfunding comes down to emotions. There's anxiety, there's fear, there's excitement. It's like a jumble of different emotions. The main thing is I want you to come away feeling more confident. I want you to have strong education, a strong foundation to work off of as you're going into your campaign. So that way you do better. We all know that when you're nervous, you tend to not perform as well. You tend to not think clearly. So my goal at the end of this class is that you're going to be more confident and you're also going to be armed with the strategies that you can use in order to raise funds on Kickstarter. And I do think Kickstarter is obviously a really powerful platform, but it also is just one part in your journey. It's one milestone. Once you raise money on Kickstarter, you can do a lot of different things. You can run another Kickstarter campaign. You can open up an online shop. You can open up an entire business. I've seen 6 and 7 figure businesses grow off of Kickstarter. You can sell to Facebook, like the Oculus Rift, which has raised a couple million on Kickstarter and sold to Facebook for $1 billion. So like you never know where the journey can lead. And I'm really happy just to be able to meet you now where you are, but just to be reminded that the vision is much bigger here. And finally, why should you listen to this guy? Why should you listen to Sal? What does he know about crowdfunding? You probably have some idea of like my knowledge when it comes to crowdfunding. I'm pretty prolific in terms of my writing. Like I put out blog posts 3 times a week. I have books out there on Kickstarter and crowdfunding. I do a lot of podcasts once a week on crowdfunding called the Crowdfunding Demystified Podcast. That podcast alone has done over 150,000 downloads or listens. I have a YouTube channel where I talk about crowdfunding and Kickstarter. So I put out a lot of information and knowledge, but it all started for me in 2012. 2012 is when I started actually blogging and writing about this topic. And I'm very, very fortunate over the years to have people recognize my work. I've been cited by the major experts in the industry, Indiegogo, other platforms, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, list goes on. I've been able to talk at universities, give talks on crowdfunding, and I've been able to just spread this message and the things that I've learned and discovered. And I think most importantly is, I've accumulated a lot of knowledge over the last 5 to 6 years, and I've learned what works and what doesn't. So you can take advantage of my knowledge. You can use the things I've learned, and you can sort of speed up the process a bit and apply it to your own campaign. So that's why I think you should listen to me. Now, the first question I have for you, I'm going to have a few questions throughout this class, is can you tell me a little bit more about your product? What are you passionate about? Why is it that you made this product? Who does this help? What problem are you solving? The more information you give me about your product, or if you're a nonprofit, what you're funding for, what you're trying to raise money for, if you're a small author, a small indie game publisher, something like that, telling me more about your product, and it is in a way a product, that is going to help me tailor this class for you. So that's the first thing I'm going to ask you here. Can you tell me just a little bit about your product? Okay. So over the years, I've noticed that every single Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign has a few different things in common. There are the obvious things. These are what I refer to as the campaign assets. These are the hard assets. These are the things that people come to a campaign page and they see. These are pretty obvious. This is a checklist you can easily go down. This is the pitch video. The pitch video is there to introduce your product, to persuade people of the value of it. You have your reward tiers. If you're not familiar, reward tiers are basically perks or things that people gain access to once they decide to support your crowdfunding campaign. For a nonprofit, this could be other things that you're promising. So this is what people actually get or they take away as a result of buying into you and your vision and your campaign. There's also the copywriting. Copywriting is kind of a term that's a little bit weird. All it really means is the marketing text or what you use to persuade people on your campaign page of why they should support you and your project. This is just the text that you are using to persuade people to back your project. That is the copywriting. Copywriting, you can also, in your advertisements, that might be copywriting. Copywriting is really just ad copy. You can think of it that way. And also the images and the title and description. That's what goes into a campaign. Like, it's very easy. This is the simple checklist that you're going to have as you're putting together your campaign. And you're going to be getting through all of these the weeks leading up to the launch, or maybe you already have all of these together. Now, what I really specialize in is sort of what happens beyond that. So there is Kickstarter or Indiegogo, which is a marketplace. People that are regularly can discover you, super backers, etc. And then there is your crowd. There is the people that are interested or that you can get interested in your project outside of the crowdfunding platform. And this is your marketing strategy. How are you getting the word out? How are you promoting the heck out of this campaign? How are you arousing interest and getting people to want to know more about what you're doing? And that comes from your social media, your email list, PR, and we're going to be covering way more in depth into these different elements in the next slides. And finally, if you think of like a stool has to stand up, it needs 3 legs. The third commonality of every successful crowdfunding campaign is their marketplace strategy. So the marketplace, marketplace is kind of a fancy word. All it really means is you have a list of buyers and sellers. eBay is a marketplace. Amazon is a marketplace. Whenever there's a buyer and a seller, a marketplace forms. And the great thing about marketplaces is when you enter a marketplace, you're instantly going to get traffic, attention, and potentially people to buy your product. If you launch a product on Amazon, the benefit there is you're gaining access to a bunch of customers. If you were to launch it on your own website, there would be no marketplace. You have to do all of the marketing yourself. So Kickstarter is a marketplace, and there is a strategy behind it. That's also something that goes into a campaign, is understanding how Kickstarter works and how the algorithm works and how crowdfunding as a whole, quite frankly, works in the marketplace way. So this gives you an idea of the 3 core components that go into a killer campaign. But what I want to do now is I want to share with you something that I've sort of boiled down the entire process to, the entire system, everything you're going to be trying to do to get backers. You can boil this down to this quote. So the quote is that the goal of all marketing is to influence lurkers to become customers. So if in front of you have a desk, one side of the desk, you have lurkers. These are people that are kind of interested in what you're doing. Maybe they know who you are. Maybe they know a little bit of your product, but they're really just lurkers. Like, they're not bought into what you're doing. They haven't made any kind of commitments. They're lurkers. On the other side of the desk, you have customers. You have people that are backers of your crowdfunding campaign. People that are interested and bought in and give you money. With their behavior, they're demonstrating they are very, very interested in what you're doing and they're willing to support you. The goal of all of this and the things I'm going to be sharing, the strategies I am sharing, are to push people along this continuum. If you think of this in front of you as a desk, from the left side to the right side, you're trying to move people from being lurkers into the customer bucket. You're trying to move them along this. That's really everything that we're going to be talking about today. The goal is to move people on this continuum. So next, what I'm going to be doing is crowdfunding is a really cool launch process. Crowdfunding is unique in and of itself. It's something that's come about, and there's a reason why it works. And I think a lot of people don't understand the reason why it works. There are built-in measures and mechanisms for the reason why this system works, why it is that people are paying attention to crowdfunding campaigns. Why is it that crowdfunding didn't exist before 2011, pretty much? Why has it suddenly become into the public consciousness? So, what I'm going into are some of the psychological triggers and reasons why crowdfunding works. And the way you can use this is you can emphasize these things as you're going into your campaign, and in that way, raise more funding. Crowdfunding works, and I guess the reason why people support campaigns all comes down to one word: emotions. People emotionally are evoked by a campaign. They're emotionally triggered by a campaign and they want to learn more. It's the same reason why people buy products, quite frankly. We buy based off of emotion, we support projects off of emotion, we donate to a nonprofit, but off of emotion. And after that emotion that we feel, we then will justify our purchase a bit with logic. Or before we really make the entire decision, we'll go through the logic and make sure it is a good decision to make. But it first starts with emotion. And the number one emotion that crowdfunding campaigns evoke in order to get funding is a feeling of urgency. Urgency is an emotion. When you feel urgent, you feel a little bit of anxiety. You're more likely to classify that thing that's urgent as important. And you're going to, for whatever reason, it's just human psychology, you're going to put everything aside in order to tackle that task. When something is urgent, it's going to be in the forefront of your mind. And if you study crowdfunding campaigns, or if you listen to any of the people that have been on my podcast, you'll hear that oftentimes there is a surge in donations or a surge in pledges within the last 3, maybe 2 days of a campaign. Like, for some reason, there's just this freaking uptick of pledges. People are like interested in the last few days. And people ask me, why is that? It's because of urgency. The campaign is closing. You're no longer going to be able to support this project and get one of these rewards. It's the last chance that you have to actually buy in and support this project. So there's urgency attached to that. And that's why there is a spike in pledges. That's why there's a spike in the amount of funding you're getting towards the end, is because of this urgency concept. Now, people that have picked up on this, a lot of entrepreneurs and marketers out there, they will also bake urgency into their campaign very early on. So an easy way to do this is something like a limited quantity reward tier, or you can call that an early bird reward tier. There are a limited number of rewards someone can claim. Maybe there are only 25 or 50, and they can only claim these rewards at this very discounted price. And they're scarce. They're going to go by very quickly. So there's naturally a lot of urgency to claim those early rewards. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of projects that do well tend to see a spike within the first week. They tend to see a lot of attention and people backing it within the first week because they communicate this feeling of urgency. So urgency is the emotion that you're going to want to trigger in order to get people to back whatever it is you're trying to raise money for. And I'll also go into some of the other emotions here, but urgency is really what prompts action. Now, the next thing, looking at crowdfunding, look at these different crowdfunding campaigns, you might think like, oh, wow, like look at the funding. This person is raising so much money. And it's very easy to get bogged down in the financial metrics or be thinking about sales and revenue and what that amount of funding would look like in your bank account. Now, if I'm to bring up something like, what if I was to tell you that the second most powerful reason that people back crowdfunding campaigns has to do with story? Usually people will gloss over. They're just kind of not really interested. It sounds like one of those soft skills that isn't really talked about in the boardroom. But I'm going to explain to you why story is so gosh darn important when it comes to getting people to support you on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. The reason why story is important is you can think of story as a vehicle. It's a vehicle that transmits emotions. So if you want someone to feel exactly how you feel, you've made months or years of your life making this product. You've built the prototype, you put all the thought into the idea, you've done everything possible to make a really cool product, and you just are so excited about it. You're raving about it. People are going to love it. The way that you transmit those emotions that you yourself feel towards the product is with a story. If you want people to empathize with you or want to feel a certain way towards your product, you want to bake story in to your marketing. So an example here is if you are talking with your friend, talking with your buddy, and something really wild happened last night, and you're trying to get him to put himself in that situation and laugh along with you, you would tell him a story. You wouldn't just logically go through event by event, like what happened. That would be kind of boring. But for some reason, when it comes to products, we oftentimes will do that. We'll just list out the attributes of the product, or we'll talk about the percentages and statistics and these different things. Where really, if we were just to tell a story, like, why is it that I spent these few years of my life trying to make this product? Well, I wrestled with this problem, and I went out there and tried to do all these different solutions to the problem. They didn't work. So I tried this other thing, it didn't work. And I finally got so freaking frustrated that I was like, you know what? I'm going to solve this problem. So I put everything in my life on hold. I worked really, really hard. I surrounded myself with mentors and people to help me out. And I really started to read the right books. And eventually I came up with this prototype, and yeah, it kind of sucked. But then I came up with another prototype and people loved it. And now I have this product out there. And the only thing that's stopping me is I need a minimum order quantity. I need your money in order to get this product out there to you. And if you're like me and you wrestle with this problem, you're also going to love this product because of X, Y, and Z. What I just shared there is a story. It's a very simple, very basic framework for a story. But what it does is it, number one, allows you to get a sense of who I am. But number two, it also gets you more interested. It really captures your attention, and it's more likely you're going to read on to learn about this product that I invented as a result of my own pain point. So that's why story is important. Another very pivotal and crucial component of why crowdfunding works. This is sort of happens, I think, much more publicly now, but the psychology of it is happening behind the scenes. And that's the concept of social proof. So we look at a crowdfunding campaign. You see a bunch of backers, you see a lot of funding, you see people backing it. And naturally, you're going to want to find out, like, why is it that all of these people are backing this project? Like, what's so freaking cool about it? Or what's so interesting about this? I live in New York City. If you ever go into Central Park, well, first of all, Central Park is amazing. Like, it's so expansive and big. But if you go to like a dense section where there are a lot of tourists, you'll notice these street performers that are out there. And these street performers, they're doing these really cool, wacky tricks and like all this juggling and all these things I could never do. But what ends up happening is a small crowd of people will gather around this street performer. And when you see this crowd of people gathered around the street performer, new people, new tourists walking in are like, what's going on here? They'll eagerly try and peer over other people to see the performance or to see what's happening. And they end up wasting like 15 to 30 minutes of their day just watching this street performer. And what the performers will do, they're very smart. They'll say, hey, everyone, like, move in closer. When I clap my hands, I want you to clap your hands. Or they try to create a big emotion or a big commotion around themselves. And this crowd naturally causes other people to be interested in, like, who is this? Is this a celebrity? What is this performance? It looks really fun. Let's stop here and wait for 10 minutes to watch this. So what social proof does is it creates interest. Social proof, very simply, is when other people are interested in what you're doing. When you have a bunch of backers, you have a bunch of people leaving comments, you have media logos, in any way that you're showing that you have people interested in what you're doing, naturally, other people around the web are going to want to find out what that thing is. So a simple example of this is just simply broadcasting the fact that you've had this number of backers thus far in 24 hours. People are like, oh, what's this project that's blowing up on Kickstarter? It really ropes people in and gets their interest much more than if you're just tell them what you're doing. As another thing that social proof does is it facilitates a transaction. If you have a lot of people that are tipping someone, you feel a little bit weird. If you're in the subway and a bunch of people are walking by this performer and they're all tipping the performer $1 or $2, if you don't tip them, you kind of look like a bad person. Like, it feels socially weird. It feels weird to do something if other people are not do something if other people are doing it. And a final example here before we get into the last really powerful thing that comes in terms of the psychology is if you're walking down the street with your buddy and you're in a new city, you're having a great time, you're laughing, and you're like, you know what, let's go and grab a bite to eat. You're walking down the street, you come across one restaurant, and like no one is in the restaurant. No one is there. It's really empty. It looks like a ghost town. It probably would feel really weird to go in there and eat dinner. Like it just feels awkward. It's not desirable. If you were to pass by another restaurant though, and a bunch of people are there, or a few people, you're going to feel like that's a little bit more of a party that's happening. It's going to feel better to go into that restaurant. And you'll also logically justify, oh, the food must be really good. Or, oh, this looks like a good place. Let's check it out. The only reason you would go into like the other restaurant is maybe if you're single and there's like a cute girl there or something like that. Otherwise, it'd feel really weird. Like, why are you going to go into a restaurant with no one else there? If you're going to like a sporting event, and there's no one there in the bleachers, maybe a handful or a smattering of people, it's not a fun event. But if you go to a baseball game or a football game or whatever sport you love, and there's a big crowd roaring, they're rooting for their own teams, you really get into it. And it's a lot of fun. You want to create this feeling of an event, and you do that with social proof. Now, the final thing that I want to discuss here, I really think this is overlooked a lot, but it is a crucial reason over the last 5 years why I've seen that campaigns are funded. And this is the concept of building relationships at scale. So right now I'm introducing you to some of these psychological principles. And then in the next section, very shortly, I'm going to go through the actual strategies to do these different things. So in terms of building relationships at scale, a good way to think of this concept is if you see someone who you've seen on TV, let's just say you see a celebrity, you're more likely to yell out their name in public and be like, hey, Denzel, like, what's up, man? Or you're more likely, if you're like a teenage girl, to just start screaming because you see Justin Bieber. That's a very strange behavior. Why are you doing that? When you see someone who you have never met in person, and you get a chance to see what they look like, you get a chance to hear their voice, you get a sense for their values, maybe a little bit of information about them, where they grew up, and you start to learn a little bit more about them, you begin to ease your defensive meter. You begin to think of this person as like a friend, as someone who you've never really met, but if you were to see them in a party, you'd instantly go up and say hello. You'd be open to them, you treat them just like a friend. Building relationships at scale is just a very simple way to say that you're warming people up to you. And the reason why crowdfunding and Kickstarter works is people need to not only buy into your product, they also need to trust you. They also have to believe that you are going to make good on this project. So I'm going to share with you a way to do that. All I'm saying here is that when it comes to building relationships at scale, the more that people are warmed up to you and the more they trust you, the more likely they are to do business with you. It's a very simple concept. Even personally, I've had people reach out to me being like, Sal, like, I feel like I know you. Like, I feel like you're my friend or like my brother. You remind me of this person in your life. Or I really loved it when you shared this personal story, which I'll do sometimes in emails or blog posts. And the reason why people feel that towards me is this psychological concept, which of course I love. I love connecting with people and also getting to know people. Okay, so my question for you is, when are you launching your crowdfunding campaign? The next section, I'm going to go through the actual principles that play into these psychological tactics and triggers. So you're going to learn in just a few seconds what you can do in order to target these things and to get people to then take action. How do you trigger these emotions? That's what I want to spend the next section doing, but I'm also open to answering some of these questions. So if you do have any questions, I would love it if you could type in the chat, and I will also be looking through some of the projects you have. If you tell me when you're launching, I can also give you a bit of better advice and strategies, because like some strategies are good if you have a month to go. Some strategies won't work if you only have a week until your launch. So it would be great if you could let me know about that. Okay, at the end of the next section, I'm going to be answering every single one of these questions, or as many as I can. just for the sake of time, I want to first get through some of the meat so that you guys, I know that some of these next questions or next slides are going to answer some of these questions, like how do you promote by, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, Yakuz. How do you promote your brand new product if it's unheard of and my social reach isn't great? Like that's a question we're going to be answering in the next few slides. Some other questions here. If you want to change the way that people are sleeping, how do you communicate that kind of a message to the crowd? By Donald F. Or looking here, man, there's so many cool products here. Richard Burnett, wearable lighting for outdoor enthusiasts. How does wearable lighting, how does that category differ than something like, say, a theater campaign or a film campaign? You know, what you're going to be doing for a product is going to look very different than if you're doing one of these other ones. So leave some questions here, guys. Also, software. Software is going to be a very different category. Is there any kind of software you can use to make pitch videos? That's something I can answer now. You can use very simple stuff like iMovie to make your pitch video. The main thing being that if you're outsourcing it, just being aware, looking at the other person's, the service provider's previous history, but you can do it yourself with iMovie if you have more of a budget, like Final Cut Pro or something like that. But I would honestly just look at the basics. It's very simple to do. And I'll also be answering the difference between Kickstarter and Indiegogo as asked by Tom. So we can go into that also. But I really appreciate you leaving some of the questions there. Okay. So what I want to share with you is when I was first getting started, I noticed that a lot of my students had a different belief about crowdfunding than was accurate. And that belief was they would look at these Kickstarter campaigns in the media or the ones that are funded on Kickstarter or on Indiegogo, and they would conclude, wow, this campaign is seeing so much activity. Look at them. They're getting Facebook articles. They have a great social media following. You know what? I think that the reason why crowdfunding campaigns are successful is because of social media. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build up my social media following, and then I'm going to have a successful crowdfunding campaign. I'm not saying this to sort of put down their strategy, more of just this is a very common belief, but it's actually not true. Social media does not equal crowdfunding success. That's a very important thing to share here today. Social media does not equal crowdfunding success. So what does equal crowdfunding success? Like what is happening behind the scenes? If you see this campaign, you're not really seeing what's happening that they're doing leading up to the project. So the number one thing that is going to determine if you get a jump in funding within the first week is this, what I'm about to mention. It is email marketing. The email list that you have leading up to the launch of your campaign is going to determine how many backers you see on day 1 and day 2 and possibly day 3 also of your campaign. The hidden thing that most people don't discuss or that they don't see is that many of these large projects, what they do is they'll build up an email list of 500, 1,000, sometimes even 5,000 people that are interested in their campaign in some way. And when they launch, as a result of that email list, they see a massive jump in funding within the first 3 days of the campaign. Now, what does that do? Well, first of all, that causes you to trend better on Kickstarter. When you have a jump in funding, and I call this quote unquote engineering success, you end up trending better on Kickstarter. So then they start to rope in backers and super backers, and they start to get more and more funding. And then they're talked about by the media, and their social media following also naturally starting to grow, and they're starting to become more viral on social media. But the core thing that started it all off is actually their email list. So the number one thing you can do to set yourself up for success, aside from setting a very low realistic goal, is to have an email list of people who have expressed interest in your product or your campaign or whatever you're doing. Usually, I recommend doing this by setting up a landing page. This can also be called a squeeze page, and just promising either early bird reward tier access, a better pricing, or you could be giving something away for free, quite frankly. This is going to make the massive, really big difference with your first week for your campaign is email marketing. And I thought the same way too. Like we see a lot of people now focused on social media, and like social media is a buzzword. So many agencies are talking about it. So many people are talking about social media and how it's important to have a big social following. If you send out a tweet, if you send out a Facebook message, a Facebook update, if you send out an Instagram post, yeah, I mean, some people will see it if you have a following, but not a lot. Like you'll get a trickle. It's almost like you're turning on a faucet and you get a trickle of water coming out of that faucet. Like, yeah, over time that water can fill a bucket, but it's going to take forever and it's not very effective. If you want like a fire hose, like a river of water that's going to instantly fill up a bucket, you would instead use email marketing. Social media is amazing for a few different reasons I'm going to go into. But if you're talking strictly the first week, you want to be focused on your email list because that's the highest converting source of pledges. If you have 1,000 people on an email list versus 1,000 social media followers, every single day, the email list will outperform your Facebook profile, your Facebook page, your Instagram page, or your Twitter. And just the way that sales work. So if you have, say, 1,000 email subscribers, you might see like 20% becoming backers, 10%, 5%. It really depends based on the category. On social media, you're going to see a very small amount. So don't bank on social media as being the prime driver of pledges in your first week. Now, that being said, social media does play a role in your campaign. What is social media good for? Social media is good for what talked about a little bit earlier, the actual tribe that you're building and warming these people up to who you are, to what it is that you're interested in, who it is that you are, the values you have, the product, all that kind of stuff. We talked about like really making it so that people have a clear understanding of who you are, why you made this product, etc. Social media is great for that reason. The more you people see your face, the more that they see your updates, your messages, your photos of your product, the more likely they are to trust you. The more likely they are to think you're serious about this campaign, and they associate more familiarity with your product and with you. So it's great for that reason. And that's putting out informative content, could be entertaining content. It's really good for sort of shifting people so that they don't view you as just another marketer, but they view you as someone who is legitimately creating a product that you care about. This is called the mere exposure effect in psychology. The more you see someone's face, the more that you are feeling this familiar sense about them. I'm willing to bet that like you have neighbors right now that you probably haven't really talked to, or you have neighbors in your apartment building or by you in your home development that you've maybe only exchanged words with once, but you always are going to associate a feeling of familiarity with those people, despite the fact you've never really talked to them. Like, despite the fact they could be serial killers for all you know, you're more likely to trust them with your kids. Or you're more likely, if you go to a setting like a party where you don't know a lot of people, to strike up a conversation with them. You've just seen their face so much that you're warmed up to them and you associate a little bit of familiarity with them. So social media is great for that reason. The other thing it's really good for is building your email list. So you can use social media like posting updates, posting entertaining things, informative things, quotes, prototype photos. Every once in a while, you can say, P.S., we're launching this super secret project. It's going to make your jaw drop. And then you drop in a link and have people then go to the actual landing page where they opt in to your email list. So that's another good thing that social media is great for. And as I mentioned, the mere exposure effect, just having more trust and empathy with you, and just viewing you as not another marketer, but a cool guy who's doing something that he cares about in the world. So that's something that to me is really understated. And it's not, social media is not the prime driver of pledges early on in a crowdfunding campaign. So we talked a little bit about email marketing and the role that plays, particularly in the first week. We talked a little bit about social media and the role that social media plays in making people aware of your story, warming them up, the different psychological things we talked about when it comes to trust, familiarity, also social proof. If you have a lot of social media followers, people are more likely to listen to what you have to say. The other thing that I think that just isn't really talked about very much is the value of PR and influencers. So I want to take a second to ask you, what do you think the value of PR is? And I also want to discuss how PR can play into your campaign. So these are the different pillars that go into your campaign: email list, social media. Now I want to talk a little bit about PR. But before we do, I'm going to, as I said, take a second to answer some of these questions and also take a sip of water. So you choose asks, how should I initially contact people and get them onto my landing page without being creepy? Right? That's the whole goal here. How do we not be creepy or spammy, but get people onto our landing page and onto our email list? There are a few different ways. Of course, you can do things like live events or parties, collecting business cards, your existing contacts, people that follow you on that are friends with you on Facebook or LinkedIn. But I think a more traditional way is, particularly for product based campaigns, usually what I see entrepreneurs doing is they will set up a landing page and then they will drive Facebook advertisement traffic to that landing page. So they'll throw, 50 bucks at Facebook ads and see how many of the emails they get as a result of that, or the kind of conversion rate they get. If they send 100 people to this landing page, how many actually opt into the email list? How many are interested in the product? That's how a lot of people do it, is they send Facebook advertisement traffic to the landing page. But you can also do these things like I mentioned, teasing it every once in a while on your social media profiles, and in that way driving traffic to the landing page. Other things you can do are organic traffic, like blogging or putting out videos or images. These different things are what are called quote unquote content marketing. So that's another way you can get some traffic to the landing page. But paid traffic, I think, is also a great and instant way to go. Corinna, I might have butchered that name. I apologize. Corinna asks, hey, Sal, we built an email list of about 3,000 people before our last campaign. First of all, congratulations. That is amazing. And we didn't find that it converted very well. How do you suggest building qualified leads? Wow, that is a really good question. Man, you're really on your game there. I think qualified leads, that's a topic where a lot of the times we look at numbers, like we look at 5,000 email subscribers or 1,000. But what we don't think about is, who are these actual people that subscribed to the email newsletter or subscribed to the email list. So, for example, in the past, I have had people approach me, particularly students, who have said, hey, Sal, I did this giveaway on Facebook and we got a lot of email leads, but for some reason it didn't convert into pledges. Why is that? And the reason is, when you do a giveaway, naturally you're going to get a lot of quote unquote freeloaders, people who aren't really interested in buying the product, but just kind of are like, they saw a giveaway. It's like, oh, this is cool. I get a free product. So the way that you went about collecting these leads is going to determine the quality of these leads. If I come to a landing page, teases a product, has a great image, maybe shares a little bit of a story, and it says I can gain access to this for a discounted price, and I put in my email, that's effectively me saying, hey, I am interested in this. Let me know when I can buy it. That is a very qualified lead. Now, let's just say I come to that same landing page and it says, do you want to get a free one of these things? All you got to do is enter your email. I'm like, oh, sure, why not? Like, I'll just put in my spam email. It doesn't really matter. So I'll put in my email there, and then I'm on the email list. I haven't expressed a buying intent or interest. So naturally, I'm not going to be as qualified as a lead. So it's going to come down to how you actually collected those people. The other thing I think that we didn't really discuss, but I didn't for a reason, I wanted to sort of leave this in case the question came up, was there is a process for, once you get these people on the email list, for creating anticipation for your project and to warming people up to your story. Anticipation is something that is really a very important part of making people, once you go live, support your project. So anticipation can be very simple things like, we now are done this prototype, and you show a screenshot, or, oh my gosh, I showed the prototype to this person. Here's what they had to say. You're creating and whetting their appetite for this product or this thing that you're making. You're making them eager to learn more. Anticipation is another thing that could result in why people are not taking action. Steven Anderson asks, what about sending press releases to media sources? That is exactly what we're covering next. I'm going to mess this one up. Yes, did asks, any comment on GoFundMe? GoFundMe, I can only really comment on it if it's more of a raising money for like a business. If you're trying to raise money for a business on GoFundMe, I don't think that's a good idea. I think you should be doing it on Kickstarter, or you should get a loan, or you should be doing equity crowdfunding. If it's more for charity, um, that is also a different type of crowdfunding, but it does play into a lot of the same psychological triggers. The main difference with GoFundMe is on Kickstarter, you can gain access to strangers. Like, you can get strangers interested in your project. On GoFundMe, it's very rare that a stranger will support another stranger unless they have a really good story. Like, a homeless man turns in money. He finds a sack of money. Instead of taking it for himself, he turns it in to the city council. A lot of people rally around that cause because, like, who would actually do that? If you're a homeless man and you need money, for you to give that up or to return a diamond ring to the person who dropped it, like, that's a really noble act. So because of that story, people might be willing to support that homeless man and throw him $5 or $25 as sort of like a reward for taking the socially right action. But for most GoFundMe campaigns, you're going to see most of your support from your friends and family. I'm going to answer one or two more questions here and then move on to the PR section of this class. In 6 months, Sam Johnson says, I'll be launching the second Geek Girl comic book series. That is exciting. Comic books, to me, Kickstarter has fundamentally transformed the way that comic book creators actually gain audiences. Like, if you've watched in the last few years, the comic book category on Kickstarter, it's been really exciting. We've seen so many new artists. We've seen so many new publishers getting their work out there, connecting with fans, and using things, even like in the gaming category. I know it's different, but it's also with artistry, using things like Board Game Geek to rally supporters around their project. That's a really exciting category, and also something that I think it's difficult because so many entertainers or creative types rarely think about the business component of their project. Like Exploding Kittens or Cyanide and Happiness. I actually had those guys on my podcast. They're extremely business-minded individuals. Not only are they creating the entertainment, are they doing what they love, the creative side, they're also thinking about the business side. So I think it's great you're on the class today, and I hope you employ some of that stuff with the project. Now, last question before we get to the next section, I'm going to answer here. Deborah asks, what about a partnership between goods and services? My nonprofit has no rewards per se, but I would partner with someone who is manufacturing. I think nonprofit campaigns are a little different because, number one, you not only have to think about the emotions of a donor, like why are they going to support you? Why are they going to feel good about supporting you? How does this cater to the vision they want to see in the world? If you're going to be supporting, I don't know, saving the whales, that's because you want you have a certain vision of how the world should be, and you want to in some way help the world to move towards that vision. Other people, maybe you suffered from abuse as a child, and as a result, you're willing to support a charity that helps abuse victims. So it's nonprofit is a very different, it's a difficult space in that way because it's so different. Different nonprofits, there's so many different types of causes out there. So it's going to vary, but I do think that definitely services do play a role, and in any way, if you can package what you're offering, even just showings of gratitude and thanks, inviting them to an event, a gala, a fundraising gala or something like that, that's really going to help people wrap their head around what you're doing. When it's some like vague cause, people are not as interested. But if it seems like a packaged kind of a deal, like they're going to get a ticket to this gala, or you're going to get X, Y, and Z, you're going to get this cool swag or something like that. It's easier for people to support you. And it's also easier for them to invite their friends because, as I mentioned before, it's more of like a celebrate. This is like an event that's happening, so it's kind of cool in that way. But I'll think a little bit more about other advice that I can impart there. Okay, we have one or two more opportunities for answering these questions, so I will get to more questions here, and I will be answering other ones just to let you know you will have more opportunities. So when it comes to the media, this is what I really want to spend the next section on is the media and the way you can use this with your campaign. And I don't want your head to spin here. This is not something that's rocket science, but it does play a very big role in the projects that are funded successfully on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. So the first thing that the media does is it delivers a really strong, rock solid sense of social proof, which we covered earlier. It gives you credibility. When you are cited by the media, you're instantly someone who's doing something cool. You're doing some cool stuff in the world. You're making something cool. Whatever you're doing is cool. Your story is cool. It's worth attention. The media only highlights things that are worth our attention. That's their job, is to bring things to our attention. So when you are cited by the media, you gain access to the actual audience of that publication, the people that are reading that publication or that are following an influencer. But it also gives you credibility that when people come to your crowdfunding campaign page, if they see you were cited by, in Scientific America, or they see that you were talked about on this gaming website or on this blog or by this influencer or on Wall Street Journal, people view you differently. They view you in a different light than just another business owner. It elevates your project. And this all plays back into the original thing that I was talking about, which is moving people on this continuum from lurkers to being hardcore sold backers. The other thing it does naturally is it drives traffic to your campaign. It delivers people that read this publication. They click that link, they read the story, and then they click the link to your crowdfunding campaign. It instantly gets you traffic and it gets you access to a whole new community of people. My goal here is to show you different ways you can access new communities. So PR, whether that's sending out press releases, whether that's directly contacting journalists and warming them up to what you're doing or explaining the value, sending them prototypes, sending them products they can review, asking an influencer to publish on Instagram. These are different ways you can get credibility and also get traffic. And finally, I think that sales is the end game here. It's great to talk about things like social proof or mere exposure effect or these different things I throw out, and I love to talk about them. But the only thing that matters at the end of the day are sales. How do you get people to take out their credit card, take out their wallet, and support what you're doing? The reason why the media is a crucial part when it comes to a crowdfunding campaign is when you have those media logos, you're improving the conversion rates. You have more people coming to the campaign that don't know you, and they see you were cited on the media. They're more likely to take a second to watch your video. They're more likely to open up their wallet and support what it is you're doing. The media is powerful for that reason. Or, they see you cited on a particular publication they read all the time, or a blogger that they read all the time, and they end up checking you out as a result of that and then supporting you because this individual, this influencer, has given you their seal of approval. So that trust and that loyalty factor that they feel to that one person moves from them onto you, which is really cool. The way we talked so much about emotions here today, it's kind of wild. But so that's another really big reason why the media plays into this. So the different things we've covered, the email list, the importance of that, I sort of debunked the fact that social media is not the main thing. It's really your email list. The second thing, social media is important in order to warm people up, in order to get people on the email list. and also to share your story, which makes people empathize with you and gets them to learn a little bit more about your project, sort of like the hidden weapon there. And finally, the PR, that is another massive component. So as I've been learning about these different things these last few years, over the last 5 years, since 2012, I've really been seeing these in action, and I've seen how they work behind the scenes, under the hood. What's happening behind the scenes of an actual campaign that is raising money. Not only talking with these creators, helping these creators, coaching them, etc. I've seen so much of the inner workings of a crowdfunding campaign and the different levers that you need to pull in order to make them happen. So, what I want to share with you is the system that I've made in order to get you funded, in order to put you in the right place for actually attracting funders and backers on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. And I call this the complete crowdfunding system. And there's a reason why I call it that. I'll go into that in just a second. But this for me is the culmination of many, many years refining my practices and discovering the proven and tested methods that work to get people to support your campaign. And not only did I, have I worked with many creators and got them to get funding and seen this and had guests on and seen the inner workings of these different projects, I've also applied these same tactics to my own business. So to tell you a little bit of a story here, basically, I was I was blogging in 2012, and my entire life, going back to when I was very little, my parents always told me, Sal, if you're going to do something, do it 100%. If you're going to work, put all of your energy into making that thing that you make, whether it's a report, a book report, or you're doing a test, give it your all. You should really be laying everything on the table and working your hardest. It's very important that you work hard because otherwise, number one, you're going to regret it later. But number two, laziness is something that people just don't like. So my entire life, I've worked really, really hard. And I think that if you've seen my blog posts or my YouTube videos, or my podcast, you know the degree of care and work that I put into the things that I put out and the content that I put out. So all my life, I've been working very hard. And even in 2012, when I was just getting started, I was putting out very comprehensive quality articles. And people were starting to love it. That's why I got attention in the industry, is because my work was very on point, very kind of no brainer. I don't like dressing things up with like fluff, etc. I was just sharing exactly what was working. But then something happened. The world kind of changed the way that they viewed me. So I was doing this work and people were taking notice to a certain degree, but then all of a sudden I saw like this explosion of website traffic, like more and more people checking out my blog, more and more people buying my products, being interested in me, and then getting lots and lots of emails every single day. And I'm like, what the heck is happening here? Like, I don't understand this. What ended up happening was I started to get cited on small blogs. People started to notice me and write about me and mention my work and cite me. And I was becoming sort of like the beginning of the foundation for this industry. And I started things like kickstarterforum.org. That's my forum. It has over 6,000 members. Crowdfundingforum.com, that has over 10,000 members. The different pillars, blog, podcast, I already went into that. But it sort of had this snowball effect. And then I started to get cited on larger publications like the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, CNN, Forbes, Next Web, Founder Magazine, started to do podcast interviews, etc. My most recent, I started to do like public talks, giving talks to universities, talking about crowdfunding. My most recent talk was with We New York City, which is actually helping female small business owners with crowdfunding and sort of helping these people who don't have access to funds. The city is putting on this initiative and sort of helping them with that. And particularly people that are from different ethnic backgrounds, not mainstream. So underrepresented minorities, you might think. So I got this experience of all of a sudden people were hitting me up a lot, like emailing me and wanting me to talk and really seeking for me to share this kind of education I was sharing already with their audience, etc. And that was only because I got onto these major publications. And in my mind, I'm like, I wasn't doing anything different, but the way that people viewed me changed. So I share this to show you the power of perception. I started to get more and more email subscribers, more and more social media followers. My website does over 800,000 page views in the year. Podcast has done over 150,000 downloads. I now have multiple websites, multiple books out there, etc. And that's all as a result of the different psychological triggers that I shared with you here today. And some of you might even feel as though, you know, um, cause of all the work I've done and sort of that I put my heart and soul into this, and I'm really passionate about it, that you have a sense of who I am and my values and these different things. This is all due to really coming up to an understanding with some of the stuff that I've shared here with you today. So first of all, thank you. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for supporting my work, for following it. I just want to take a second to say thank you. I really do appreciate it, and helping me with this mission to spread education when it comes to crowdfunding, because it sorely is needed. The second thing I want to say is I've been sort of constructing the best way that I can bring this to you. So I was thinking, man, I love putting together more premium training and education. Like I love also helping people with promotion and getting them traffic from my own audience, these different things. I also love the one-on-one support. So I started to put together all the different components of the things that you need in order to be successful with crowdfunding. And that's when I came up with the idea for the complete crowdfunding system. So the number one thing that this system has is ongoing mentorship and one-on-one support. So you can hit me up, you can do calls. You can really think of me as your coach or your mentor, but also I would say even more than that, your teammate going into your campaign. So with this kind of a model, you can do things like you can ask me to look at your campaign. You can ask for my advice regarding certain service providers. You can have me, my thoughts on the layout of your project or things that are missing, things you need to be doing more of, etc. I'm basically there as a teammate for you, holding your hand as you're going through this crowdfunding process. So that's the first part of the system, is the one-on-one mentorship and ongoing support, the personalized attention. The second is the exclusive training and verified strategies that I've accumulated up until this point. So I'll go a little bit more into what that is, but basically it's premium content. It's training and it's tactics and tricks that I haven't shared anywhere else out there online. You're going to get that with the complete crowdfunding system. And finally, there is the Mega Booster Blast package. I love the sound of that. Mega Booster Blast. Basically, my goal here is, with this third pillar of the system, to not only give you the mentorship and the training, but also to introduce you to my audience, to put you in front of my audience and get you that traffic, get you that social proof, lend you my trust and credibility in order to accelerate the funding with your crowdfunding project. So that's really where the Mega Booster Blast comes into play. And I'll go a little bit more into that in just a second. Now, some people, when I introduce, what I do, usually they think like I'm one of those like just kind of hands-off mentors who like is very difficult to reach and like is not going to give much value. But I want to just share with you a few different emails that I've gotten from course students. So you can literally email me, having me look, and I'll provide a very, very detailed critique of what it is you're doing. If you're in the idea stage, if you're a week away from launching, if you're a few months away from launching, I will help you every step of the way. So Deanna is one example of one student who said, "Hey, Sal, wow, you've been super helpful. Really gave me a lot to think about. It is exactly what we needed in order to solidify our message. Huge thanks." So what I did for her basically was, they had a very big messaging problem with their launch page and also with their campaign. So I went in there and actually hand wrote how I would rewrite their value and their offer. So it's a completely different structure here. And she was just kind of thanking me for the different things that I was suggesting there with her project. Another two examples, just to give you an idea of the support and feedback. I always strive to be over helpful. Like I put the bar down here, and up here is really the value that I provide. I believe in under promising and over delivering, because then it's a good transaction for everyone, I think. So Nelly was a great example. She really thought that my comments were helpful. Randy is another example. I do, yeah, individual calls with him. I also do it with other course students. I then do follow up emails, making sure that everyone has access to the resources I mentioned or the various bullet points, just making sure that there's comprehensive education for you to work off of, and also of my own thoughts and ideas when it comes to your own campaign. So I really try to tailor it in that way. And then they work off of these suggestions as they're leading up to their project. So I really try to do that. Not to get to I don't want to get to, soft skills here. Like I love to obviously have good customer support and such, but I also pride myself on results. So one example of a course student who enrolled was Jong, was more of a recent campaign. So he went live with a campaign that basically is, you can think of like a Keurig, but for beer. So I'll show you a photo of that in just a second. But he went live. We had a bunch of different coaching sessions, and I had to rework some of the images and give him some advice on the actual wording of the campaign, etc. But he went live, and these are this is the email that he sent me. We actually went live on Sunday at 7 p.m. and achieved an amazing campaign start. Surpassed our goal in 15 minutes, surpassed 3 times our goal in 30 minutes, and surpassed 5 times our goal in the first hour, which is just freaking amazing. They ended up surpassing over $275,000 in their first day, and they rounded off with about $382,000 that they raised. So these guys had a great campaign. They say this is all due to your amazing help and support. Thank you again for your awesomeness, my friend. That just means the world to me, because I do live in a certain sense vicariously through my students. So when they do well, I also feel that same like heightened emotion and excitement about your project. So I'm kind of going through the similar emotions that you are when it comes to anxiety or excitement. So that was a course student that did really well. This is what the product looked like. They did a great campaign. I really think that these guys not only were very coachable, which is an important part of the process, but they also put the suggestions that I had into practice. So that was another great project. I'll also get course students who have already run a successful Kickstarter campaign. And usually when they come to me, they say, our campaign was great, but I want us to do this different next time. Or I want us to do things like, I want to focus more on email list building or more on social media, or how is it that I can do X, Y, and Z? This particular course student wanted to focus more on PR because they didn't use a lot of that with their first project. So they're saying, is with great interest, I'm diving into your course, intending to fill a big vacuum in my arsenal of crowdfunding marketing weapons. And then they're talking about their next campaign. So for them, PR was something that they wish they had done more of. Susan is another example of a student that has enrolled in my program, helped her a lot in terms of, comes from a very scientific, technological background. And I think she had a lot of trouble putting things in layman's terms for her audience. So that's one of the reasons that she enrolled in the course. And one of the reasons why I was able to help her is putting things more into a way that backers can understand and getting those ideas outside of her head. Guido has actually been on my podcast, I think once or twice. So Guido was one of the most coachable students I think I've ever had. This guy put every suggestion to heart. He really implemented them. He did a great job on the PR front. He ended up getting on engineering.com, which gets over 1 million visitors per month. So he really was very coachable. And with his project, he was creating, I guess, in the engineering category, this sort of design light thing that was really neat to look at. It's sort of something that you buy to sort of be more relaxed, or something that looks really cool decor for your home. So that's another example of a good success story. And the great quote that he gave me for this was, "Thanks again, Sal. Your course, blog, and podcast have changed my Kickstarter life," which is amazing. I can't, hope for better than that. So this is just some of the examples of students that have worked with me in the past. But what I really want to share with you is what exactly this is. Like, how is this actually going to help you? Like, it's great to toot my own horn here, but I really want to give you the nitty gritty of what you're getting here with the complete crowdfunding system. And quite frankly, whether or not it's a good fit for you, because it's not a good fit for everyone. So I really want to share that. Let me just take a sip of water here. After I talk a little bit about this. I'm going to also um, finish this out by leaving an opportunity for questions. So I'll probably be staying for a significant amount of time just to go through the different questions. So if you do have questions, I will get to them. And I also have a bonus for you that I will share at the end of this. So this will be wrapped up very, very quickly. The first thing, the first component of the complete crowdfunding system, as I mentioned, is PR. So PR to me is something that's so underutilized that I decided to create an entire course around it. So this course will show you how to get media attention. How do you get people talking about you? How do you get the media buzzing about you? Not only bloggers, but also the larger media. How do you get them to share your story and to get the word out, gain access to these new communities, and also get traffic? The first component of the education training modules is an entire course on PR. These are very easy to go through. These are very short videos, very actionable. I use things like motion graphics and cool transitions in order to make them very digestible and easy to watch. So, like if you've watched my YouTube videos, I don't do too much in the way of editing. I've done all of the editing in my premium content. Number one, with the complete crowdfunding PR system, which is the course module for PR. The next thing that you're getting, which is a $247 value, is my flagship course. This is the very first course that I've created, and I've gone on to update it over the years. That's called Smash Your Kickstarter Goal. So this goes through things like, how do you actually build up a social media following? How do you, not, I guess not game, but make the most of, we'll say, the Kickstarter marketplace? How do you rank better on Kickstarter? How do you get people, regular super backers that are interested, get really interested in your project? That's everything in terms of the Smash Your Kickstarter Goal course. So this is really, I would say, focused intensively on Kickstarter. This one is more for PR and getting attention that way, and that's a $399 value. I sell that regularly at that price. So these are the two different modules. And in addition to social media and PR, et cetera, I think it's great to have videos and to have very easy to digest videos. But I myself, I love learning from books. Maybe I'm odd, maybe I'm a minority out there, but I also wanted to include that kind of education if you are more of a book learner. So I include the Kickstarter Success ebook and the Crowdfunding Fast Track book. So Kickstarter Success is actually one of my best-selling ebooks, and this is all about. I basically went out there and I interviewed individuals that have raised a significant amount on Kickstarter, and I asked them a series of questions. So we really get to hear from the horse's mouth what they would do, for example, if they're doing another campaign, the technique that actually raised the most money for them. You're really getting a lot of information directly from these individual campaigners. That's really, I think, why the Kickstarter Success ebook just sells so well. It's very practical and based in that information. And of course, I also provide my own thoughts and advice with this book. The Crowdfunding Fast Track, I think, is a great accompaniment to the two courses that I've outlined before. So the Crowdfunding Fast Track is really that step-by-step framework. It's just more of in a written form. So this is something you can follow if you just want to quickly go through. You can highlight the sections that you like or read more. The Crowdfunding Fast Track is sort of the guide that accompanies the different video modules. So this is the next part of the learning system. And these are the two bonuses I wanted to include because I am much more of a book learner and a book reader. And so if you are, I also want you to have access to the best material for you and your learning style. Now, I think it's great to have the things we mentioned. Like, it's great to have one-on-one support. It's great to have a mentor. It's great to have access to the right education and training, to have access to these premium video modules and also the ebooks, the bonuses, etc. But that all is not enough. Like, if you're launching a campaign, you also need some stuff that is going to instantly get you traffic and awareness. That's really the basis of the Mega Booster Blast package. So the Mega Booster Blast package is going to include a few different things, but the main goal is to get you in front of my audience. This includes a featured article on crowdcrux.com. So the featured article will sell and tease your product. I'm basically showing the value of people checking out your project, how cool it is, really trying to evoke curiosity, going into all the different facets of it, maybe teasing your story. I'm really trying to get people from my website onto your campaign with this featured article. And it's much more from a trusting kind of a framework, because people already trust what I write. And this is just another example of a student that I'm highlighting. So they're more likely to check out your project than if you just wrote a blog post yourself. In addition, because my blog regularly gets views, did over 800,000 views last year. So there are always people on my website browsing around, reading different articles, checking out different stuff that I'm putting out. So this is one way, I think a very powerful way to get in front of them. And I will also share you with a social media promotion to my followers. So these are over 200,000 followers across multiple social media accounts. I have a bunch of different social media accounts. Some of them have 60,000 followers. Some of them have 5,000 followers. Some of them have over 100,000 followers. So I share you and your message on these different accounts, and I blast them out on Facebook, on Twitter, etc. So you're really getting in front of my audience that way as well. And they can check out your campaign by teasing it in that way. So it's going to get you instant exposure. That's my goal here. So I think that this is sort of, for me, the third pillar of the system that I felt comfortable and I felt really good. And that's when I started to introduce it to some of the course students that I have already shared with you. And they went through this exact same system. So to tally this up, basically everything that you're getting here today comprises of, number one, the crowdfunding PR system. This is the modules that are all about PR. How to get media attention? How do you get the media buzzing? How do you get them talking about you? How do you get them writing about you and sharing your story? Beyond press releases, in addition to pitching journalists and sharing with you templates, these different things. This is a $399 value. This is extremely valuable. And I also sell this regularly. So you're getting it. That's the price. The Kickstarter, Smash Your Kickstarter Goal. This, as I mentioned, is my flagship course. This is really the course that I introduce people to when they don't know anything about the Kickstarter marketplace. They don't know how to trend well. They don't know how to build up a social media following. That is the goal with this course, is by the end of it, you feel completely comfortable and you're armed with a bag of tricks, if you will, for going out there and trending better on Kickstarter. And I don't like to use this word, but like gaming the system to a certain degree. Just, I would say, being more effective when it comes to the marketplace. In addition, you're getting that bonus I mentioned, the Kickstarter Success Guide, which is a $29 value. This guide goes through, as I mentioned, all of the different people that I've interviewed, what they've had to say directly about how to do better on Kickstarter, things that they would have done differently, tricks that they've discovered. You're getting all of that in the Kickstarter Success Guide for $29. Crowdfunding Fast Track ebook. This is meant to accompany Smash Your Kickstarter Goal and Crowdfunding PR System. This goes through step by step the framework that I've discussed, what you need to do leading up to the launch, whether it's in 2 weeks from now or it's a few months from now. You're going to find all of that in the Crowdfunding Fast Track ebook. And I think, lastly, the biggest thing that I think makes a massive difference in a campaign is not only the education, but also once it does go live, like all of those emotions come into play. You feel anxiety, you feel excited, you feel fear, you feel maybe embarrassed if you're not getting enough backers. There are a lot of emotions that come with the launch of a crowdfunding campaign. And that's when I started to introduce the Mega Booster Blast package, because I realized education is not enough. Even the one-on-one mentorship is not enough. I also need to put myself on the line for you. Not only am I joining your team, I'm also using my own assets that I've built up over the last 5 years in order to help your project. And in that way, making you more successful, which hopefully will also create a good success story for me. So the Mega Booster Blast package is a $499 value because it taps into my audience. It taps into these people that like me, that trust me, that regularly view my blog and my work. All these different things you're getting with the Mega Booster Blast package, including social media promotion, featured article, and being put in front of my audience. And I'm willing to work with you there. Also, if you have a different idea when it comes to the article, or if you want to have a certain type of story, like a more of a story about you versus about the product, I'm willing to work with you as well when it comes to that. And finally, the one-on-one mentorship and ongoing support. This is the hallmark. This is the foundation of the entire package here. I think that having individualized one-on-one support is extremely necessary going into a crowdfunding campaign, because otherwise you're looking at these projects and you have questions, or you think that this technique is what you should be doing, but in reality it's not working. And we already talked about social media, how if you look at a campaign that gets lots of funding, you might logically conclude, oh, I have to focus a lot of time on social media. Well, we already debunked that myth. It's actually from your email list. So you can use this ongoing mentorship and one-on-one support in order to ask me questions, but I will also give critiques of your product. I will work with you ongoing as you're leading up to the launch. You can think of me as sort of holding your hand as you're going through this process, answering questions, and from a simple place of putting your own interests first. If you're a good success story, that is good for me. So I want you to succeed. And that's why I've included the one-on-one and 60-day ongoing mentorship, which is a $299 value. If we were to stack all of these up, that is a $1,500 investment here today, which I think is really sizable. That's a lot. Some of the bigger business clients I talk to, that's like a drop in a bucket for them. But for an average entrepreneur or creator, I recognize that that's a very sizable investment. So I think starting the new year out right, like 2018, it's an entire new year, and you can do anything that you want in that year. You can start a new project, you can do new business, you can transform your life, your health. You can do a lot of different things. So to start the year off right with crowdfunding, I want to give you a discount here today on the package, and I will be doing that with a special link. So I'm going to share with you in just a second that link. And I'm also going to share with you the bonus, which is free. I'm going to share that in the chat. And finally, I'm going to answer all the questions that are remaining. I'm literally just going to go through the chat and like answer the questions that I see that have been posted. So if you haven't gotten your question answered, be sure to post that in the chat. Let me just take one sip of water here. It's kind of, I was thinking about 2018. And I was talking with my girlfriend actually about a sci-fi movie. So we're both like sci-fi nerds. We're both into like geeky things. And one of the things that I love, have you ever seen like the show Through the Wormhole? Or Morgan Freeman narrates that. You see these different like cool space documentaries. And the thing that I always have been gravitated towards is like time travel, or alternate dimensions, like these cool things like I just like to think about. And it's also just kind of neat to think that there might be other dimensions out there. And I was thinking about this to myself, and I'm like, wow, like what if there's another Sal out there, there's another Alex or Jane, or there's another person out there in another dimension who maybe for 2018 doesn't decide to do X, Y, and Z. Maybe they don't decide to write this book or launch this project or work on this thing. They must be leading like a completely different life than me. I know it's kind of philosophical and to think about, but it's kind of interesting because so many different crowdfunding campaigners, they live doing a 9-to-5 job. They're working for a corporation, and sort of this campaign is something they're doing on the side. It's something they're hoping is going to go well. But I imagine in another universe, I'm getting really esoteric here, but in another universe, their alternate reality probably is doing the same thing. And they're just kind of trucking along. They're kind of not wanting to do too much outside of the box. They don't want to launch a project for fear of embarrassment or for fear of failure or the anxiety that comes with running a crowdfunding campaign. So probably that person is just going to continue doing their job, doing whatever it is that they were doing beforehand, and not really confront these, quite frankly, negative emotions. Like right now, you might be feeling anxiety, or you might be feeling confusion, or these different things. they maybe just don't want to confront that, and they're just going to go along to their life doing whatever they've been doing for the last year in 2017 and not make any progress. Now, the you or the person in this dimension could decide to go up against these negative emotions. And it's really, really difficult to do. I think it's for me always hard to do new challenges and to face my own fears, my own anxiety. If you've been with me for a few years now, you'll know that I haven't always been a great speaker. If you go back to my early podcast episodes, I was very meek, very timid. My first YouTube videos are horrible. They're kind of like a weird me not knowing what I'm talking about, or being a little bit fuzzy in my brain, or the video quality really sucks. And it was very scary to put myself out there in that way. But what I realized is that by doing that and confronting all of those different emotions, it's actually enabled me to grow as a person. And if you listen to some of the guests I've had on my show, you'll also find that very rarely do they actually talk about funding. It's kind of weird. I think before you launch, the only thing you can think about is funding. The only thing you can think about is actually hitting that goal and surpassing it and raising this amount of money. But afterwards, what you begin to realize is that this process, crowdfunding, is a really powerful opportunity because it causes you to get serious. Having a 30-day campaign, you are going to be public. You're going to have the public eye on you. You're going to have your friends and family being aware of what you're doing, and they can judge it if they want to. So what I love about crowdfunding is it forces you to get serious about your ideas. It forces you to take that idea you had in your brain and make it physical. And while that does arouse a lot of negative emotions in your own body and a lot of fear and anxiety, it's also really cool because at the end of the process, you've basically gone through a boot camp. You've gone through a boot camp, a business crowdfunding boot camp. At the end of the process, not only do you have funding, but you also have all the different hardships that you went through to get to that point. And you also have this entire group of people who are early adopters, who are supporting you, your nonprofit, your project, your product, whatever it is. They're bought into your vision. They're willing to support what it is that you are passionate about. And also, once you ship out your rewards, they then have that product in their hands. Think about that. Around the world, people have the product in their hands and they can give you feedback. They can post an image on social media. And people, by seeing this success, they can connect with you. Retailers can connect with you. Other manufacturers can connect with you. It really goes a long way. So for me, crowdfunding has just been a passion because it's one of those rare opportunities where you can literally have a shift in your career. You know, you can be doing 9 to 5, one thing. You could be an accountant. You could be a business strategist. But in this other realm, in this crowdfunding realm, if you actually launch a successful campaign, you can make a career shift. I can't tell you the number of people I've talked with who start off with a Kickstarter campaign. They end up raising a bunch of money, and then they start an online store. And a few years down the road, they have employees. You know, they're a full-fledged business. So it's one of those rare opportunities where you can actually shift your career to a certain degree, and you could level up your existing business and reach even more and more people. And those people can then translate into customers in the future and kind of like sort of jumpstart the process there. Kickstarter is perfectly named. Like it really is kickstarting a new career or kickstarting an entirely new business. Okay, guys, this is my offering for you. You're going to get the complete crowdfunding system. This includes the PR modules at $399. Smash your Kickstarter goal at $747. The Kickstarter Success Guide at $29. The Crowdfunding Fast Track ebook at $25. Mega Booster Blast, $499 value. Personal ongoing mentorship for $299. And that's going to all add up to $1,500. That is at my traditional pricing. This is what I sell my products and my services for. Today, you are getting it for $749. When you use the link down below It should be right below this YouTube video, crowdcrux.com/webinar special. You'll learn a little bit more about this offering. And if you want to get started working with me today, you can enroll there and we can get started working on your project. I'm not saying that you necessarily have to get started here today. I'm going to keep this link open, so you're going to get this discount until Sunday evening. So I think Sunday, let's just say 11:55, 11:59. I would say Sunday evening would be a good time if you're looking to think about this a little bit more. Go and still check out that link, crowdcrux.com/webinar special. Read a little bit about it. I have all that information I just shared with you on that page, so you can see a little bit more. You can see everything you're getting. And then you can enroll there, whether that's today, tomorrow, or Sunday. And also remind you of that via email. But if you are ready to get started today, I would love to have you as a course student. I'll be reaching out to people this upcoming week. I would love to work with you on your project and really answer all of your questions and really have my advice much more tailored to your project. I can give feedback as I've shown you with some of the other course students. But as I promised, let me drop this link here, the bonus in the chat, so you can gain it. If for anyone who wants to leave right now, let's see, okay. So the link I'm going to be sharing right now will take you to a list of bonus resources. So these are resources that you can use to, number one, make things easier with your campaign, but also to get the word out, to reach more people. If you're more of like on a budget, a lot of these are going to help with that. Things that I mentioned to make social media easier or make email gathering easier. These are a list of resources and tools that can help your project at any stage. So you can check out that link, which I just posted in the chat. Steven says this link does not work. Let me double check here. Oh yeah, I see. I think I put it in wrong here. Sorry, guys. Trying to do a couple of things at once. Okay, this one should work. Pasting it here. Sorry. Okay, let me know if this one works. I just opened it up in a new tab, so it should work. Appreciate you for bearing with me here. The link, it's crowdcrux.com/list. That's what will take you there. For some reason, when I type it into my other tab, it's loading, but when I'm pasting it in and click it, it's not working. So crowdcrux.com/list, that's the link that will take you there. So if someone types that in physically into their browser and lets you know, that should work because it's working for me. If not, just shoot me an email, and if you aren't able to access it, I will individually follow up with you if you want to check that out. But that's the link. Yes, it works. Okay, Human better. Sorry, guys, doing a bunch of things at once. It's hard to concentrate. Sometimes I type them incorrectly. So appreciate you for bearing with me with that. I wanted to link you up with that. But yeah, okay. So let me look through some of the questions here and answer them. And also, I just need to take a sip of water. Karina asks, do we have to purchase today to get the special? Okay, so the webinar special, which you can access at the link below the YouTube video, this special will be available until Sunday evening. So this is a significant discount on my services, on promotion, on the training material. You're getting this package, this exclusive discount until Sunday evening. So this will be live. You can check it out. You can decide whether or not you want to buy into, you want to enroll until Sunday evening. I think if you are at all interested today, then why not? I'm happy to work with you. I'm ready to work with you. I'm really excited to get started. I always love working with new students and new products. If you want to think about it for a day, you can still revisit this link until Sunday evening. That's when the package will expire, and it will expire. So if you check it out, at Sunday at 1 o'clock a.m., or sorry, at Monday at 1 a.m., or, a little bit after Sunday evening, the link will expire. So make sure you get in before it expires there. Okay. Going to be checking. Steven says it still does not work. Steven, if you go to my other post and you just type in crowdcrux.com/link, it should work. I had a few other people who have posted in the chat have said it worked. So rather than clicking the link, try actually physically typing it in to access those resources. I think that's going to be success there for you. Okay, I'm going to look through some of these questions so I can help answer them. Pablo J. Garman asks, what is the success rate for mobile apps, not games, on Kickstarter? Is this a good platform for that? Okay, Pablo. I've had on successful mobile app campaigns onto my podcast, but there are some issues that you should be aware of. So the first thing is that usually I don't see software or applications that are in the mobile sphere getting backers from Kickstarter itself. So, we talked about like super backers and regular backers and catering well in the system. Usually, I don't find that mobile apps tend to do that well when it comes to roping in people that are already on Kickstarter. At the same time, though, I have seen people who will do and employ the techniques I talked about, like building an email list, introducing them to prototypes of the app, having them play around with it a little bit before they go live. And then they're able to successfully raise money with crowdfunding. So it's a bit of a different strategy. You're going to be mainly driving the attention and the interest in the app. I wouldn't rely as much on the Kickstarter ecosystem. Now, another thing is you can look at other projects like the Ghost blogging platform. So that's an open source, different type of a project than if you're making this app for profit. So that's also something to keep in mind. If you can involve other people into this, and this is more of like an ecosystem kind of an app, that might see better success on Kickstarter. If it's more of you're trying to start a business-based app, I would really put a lot of stress on the email list and getting people to try out the prototype so they know they've already sampled it. They know you can code this thing. When it eventually goes live on Kickstarter, they're more likely to buy into the vision and actually support it. That would be my advice there for you. Richard Reyes asks, there are a lot of successful beer keg cooler campaigns in Kickstarter. Which one were you involved in again? So I can look it up. It's called Hoppii, Hopii. So these guys, I talked about them a little bit in this class here today. They did an amazing job. Were very successful. So you can check them out. It's Hoppii, Hopii. Looking here at some of the other questions. I'm going to butcher this. Him Yisted asks, can your complete crowdfunding system make sense or work for operating a crowdfunding platform using the Ignition Deck Enterprise? So that's a very technical question, but Ignition Deck is basically a plugin you can use to run a crowdfunding website. So you're trying to, from what I understand, start your own crowdfunding website. So the problem I think that a lot of these people run into when they're trying to launch their own platform is not only getting projects, but also giving projects the right set of principles so that they can raise money from their crowd. So what the crowdfunding system will do, what it will do is basically give you the education and knowledge so that you can then share this with your users and they can raise money for you. They can raise money for you, which then increases the revenue for your company. That's the first thing it will do. The second thing is, if you're a new crowdfunding platform, getting attention and traffic, and that's a very difficult thing because you're competing against some of these more entrenched competitors. So if you're doing this, whether your own kind of a crowdfunding raise or you're trying to start more of a crowdfunding platform, by getting in front of my audience with the Mega Booster Blast, that's going to improve your domain authority. That's going to get you traffic, going to drive people your way that are already interested in crowdfunding. So it's going to help that way. And finally, I have a lot of ideas for you. If you are trying to start your own platform or something like that, I have a lot of ways that I can help you. So yeah, that I do think it's a good, definitely a good starting point, particularly if you don't have a lot of users or if the users that you have are not raising money effectively from their crowd. It's a good place to start. And if you're running your own crowdfunding campaign on your own website, this is, you got to know this. Like, you don't have access to a larger marketplace, so you have to know these principles. You have to know how to get people to support it, and having traffic is always going to help with that. So that's my answer for that. That being said, before I answer one more or two more questions, actually, I do want to stay here a little bit longer because I'm seeing now a lot more questions. Before I do that, I just want to say who this is not for. That's a good point. This is not for someone who is raising money for, let's just say, charity, and they think that you're just going to magically get strangers to support this campaign. That is probably not a good fit for this. Most of your backers are going to come from your friends and family. And I have another course that's actually catered to GoFundMe, that's catered to Fundly and these different charity crowdfunding websites that I would introduce you to if you are interested in that. This is more for you if you're trying to raise money for a board game, a film, a physical product of some sort, like a design product, a technology gadget, or a gizmo, a game. You're trying to raise money on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. That's really what this system is for. Or if you're interested in rewards-based crowdfunding, is what it's called. If it's charity, probably not going to be the best fit. Then I would recommend one of my other courses there. Another question by Karina. We sent out tons of press releases during our last campaign and we didn't receive many responses. Do you suggest hiring a PR firm or consultant instead of doing it yourself? Well, the benefits of having a PR firm are that they have their own network that they can reach out to. And they will also be directly reaching out on behalf of you to many of these journalists and trying to schedule interviews, etc. What is the downside? Because that sounds great. The downside is they have some cases a $2,500, $5,000 retainer. Some of the top PR firms also charge like $10,000 as a retainer. So it's very costly. I think that the individual creator can completely do it themselves. They can, with some of the stuff I mentioned, like create a media list, use some of the tools that I mentioned in my system in order to reach out, in order to standardize this, make it a lot easier. And also, if you use some of the quote unquote story formats that I mentioned in my course, that is another way that you can get media hits. The media, you have to recognize, as a business. Like, I don't just have random people on my podcast or write about random things. I write about a very specific set of things. The same thing is true for other bloggers and other journalists. They're looking for a specific type of story. They're looking for a particular type of person to pitch them. So they're going out there. They have to fill these quotas of writing stories every single day or every single week. So they're naturally going to look for a story that's easy for them to write or that hits many of the different trigger points that I mentioned. So I do think that if you do it yourself, it's very, very easy to do. You just have to be working off the right foundation there. Press releases are a little bit of a different matter. Depends on which press release company you're going with. And it also depends if they're doing things like, are they doing syndication? Are they doing emails? Are they doing email blasts to random people they don't know? Like that, I need a little bit more information on that, but I'd be happy to talk more about that one-on-one if that's something you want to explore more in this next campaign that you have. Keith D. Most, that's a cool name, Keith D. Most, says, how do you get people to contribute their skills? Well, team building is a really important part of business and also crowdfunding. You can only do so much yourself. When you are doing a upcoming crowdfunding or Kickstarter campaign, there's a lot of different stuff you have to get done. So what I would recommend if you're trying to get people to buy in and contribute their skills to your campaign is to first understand what they actually are going to get out of it. So simple example. I had a person I was talking with, they were gearing up to their campaign and they had a really great pitch video. And I'm like, how the heck did you get this done without spending tons of money? And he was telling me basically what he did was he approached local film students and talked to them and told them about the experience that they're going to get as a result of joining his project and all the different stuff. And he can't pay them like really much at all, but they're going to get so much experience. They're going to be able to use that to put that on their resume. They're going to get footage. They can show an example project. They can show to maybe other businesses in the future. They can get a job very easily afterwards. So what he did was he first gained an understanding of what does this person want? And then he aligned his project with that. So let's just say another example. If you're trying to work with someone who's really good at manufacturing or really good at the physical hardware of the project, you have to be able to understand what is it that they want. If they want a very simple 9 to 5 corporate life, probably not the best person to try and convince. Now, this is a person that wants to start their own company, or they want to see their work in other people's hands, or they're a tinkerer, they love inventing things. That's a very easy sell because by starting the project with you and helping you out, they're going to, number one, have their product that they made out in the hands of all these people. Number two, they're going to have a chance to prove their chops. They're going to show that they can actually make a product from scratch. And number three, they might gain ownership in your business, or they might just have great credibility. Likely, you're going to have to pay them something or give them ownership in your business if it's that integral of someone contributing their skills. So these are some easy ways. Other things I've seen a lot of people do are hire interns to help with things like PR, to help with things like social media, usually relying on people who are looking for the experience and selling that experience of being in a business boot camp with crowdfunding. Like, this is an experience where you're getting so many things thrown your way. You're going to have responsibilities, really trying to shine a light on the benefits of running a campaign with you. I think that's going to help you persuade people who have skill sets to join your team and to join your project. And even for like film campaigns, getting the actors to go out there and reach out to their own network. That's another really interesting thing. Looking here through a few more questions. I got another. How to get people to contribute their skills, not just their money. I think I just answered that question. Do you think an environmental project is right for Kickstarter? Okay, that's one potential question here. I'm trying to get some new names or faces here. Going really back in the chat. Oh man, there's a lot of questions here. Trying to go a little bit farther just to get a unique question from someone who didn't get an answer. Brian, okay. Brian Burnman asks, how do you appeal to those who are wanting inner and outer peace? Bro, I want that for myself. Okay, so if it's a book, or is it a training, educational videos? Is it a fashion line that sort of reflects those values? I need to know what the product is to help you there. But this is the same thing. This is the problem and solution mindset that I'm trying to ingrain here. The problem is people want inner peace, or they want peace in their life. That's the problem they experience. Okay, where do they gravitate online? Are they part of Facebook groups? Are they part of LinkedIn groups? Are they going to certain conferences? Are they going to meetup groups? Are they reading certain blogs? Where are they congregating online? The next step is, all right, how am I going to alleviate the anxiety they feel in their everyday life? How am I going to help them feel more peaceful? How am I going to facilitate them getting those benefits? What am I giving them? So that you're going to have to provide, you're going to have to tell me, like, is it a book or is it something else? Is it a new educational training system to teach some kind of meditation or something? Like, I need to know more about that to really sell it. And then the final part is you then put together a pitch that outlines that problem, that outlines how you personally, Brian, experienced the problem, your story. You inject that into the pitch, and then you introduce them to the solution that you came up with. And once you have their attention and they realize that, then you go into the benefits of the solution and how their contribution, what it's going to get them. Is it going to get them a discounted book? Is it going to get them first access, free access to this new training course? What is it going to do? That's really just a very basic framework that I would go for really pitching anything, but particularly for the question that you mentioned. Okay, I'm going to answer two more questions and then we're going to call it quits just because it is getting a little bit longer. Um, Going back here a little bit later. What about if your social media presence is not great? What do you do? Very simple. Social media is only there for those who have time. So if you have 3 months before the launch of your campaign, spend the time building up your social media. If you don't, you have to go with tactics that are going to be more fast in the results that they generate. So things like Facebook advertising, things like going with a promotional company. Um, you're going to have to basically pay money in order to speed up time. When you have 3 months or 6 months, you have a lot of time. So you can build up social media over that length of time. When you only have a week to go, you're going to have to roll out Facebook ads and pay money to get the attention of people in your target audience. So you either are going to be spending time or money. You can think of it that way in order to get people interested in what you're doing online. Okay, final question. Let's see here. Ooh, these are a lot of really cool products. Disposable paper holder. I'm really trying to go back, like all the way back in the chat. So just bear with me while I find a final good question to. Okay, we're gonna end on this note. What are the differences between Kickstarter and Indiegogo, as asked by Tom Shanahan? I have a YouTube video on this as well that I think is really good, but I would say the main difference is Kickstarter is a bigger marketplace. Indiegogo has more of a breadth in terms of categories, and they allow more different types of projects. But finally, Kickstarter, I've seen a lot of people that will raise money successfully on Kickstarter and then will go on to Indiegogo for the in-demand program. So they'll actually raise money on Kickstarter and then continue to raise money on Indiegogo. I think it's a very effective way to go about it. The only way I would say Indiegogo has some benefits over Kickstarter is they have this functionality called a secret perk, where you can send a secret link to bloggers and it like unlocks a secret perk. That's kind of cool. They also have basically more hand holding. They're very known for reaching out individually to campaigners, so they're more likely to work one-on-one with you a little bit than Kickstarter. You have to take that with a grain of salt, of course, because they do have a lot of campaigns and projects. But I have had people who have told me they went with Indiegogo because Indiegogo was willing to answer their questions and help them a little bit with their campaign. So that is something that I think is really a key difference. And finally, with Indiegogo, you also then have the opportunity to have a different sort of look and feel to your campaign. That's another, I would say, difference there. But I actually outlined this way more in a YouTube video I have up on my channel, so you can check that out. And the ending here on this note, Andre asks, how to take your pitch beyond your personal contacts. That was I think this is the entire culmination of this webinar, and my entire goal with you is to show you the ways that you were able to do this. So this was actually a question that was asked at the beginning. I hope that I answered this on this class. I hope that you now feel more confident going into your campaign, that you know what to focus on, that I've debunked some of these myths, and those triggers that I went through. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me and spending some time here with me today, learning about these different strategies I've uncovered over the years. For those of you that are interested in the complete crowdfunding system, you can check it out, the link down below, and it will expire this offer by Sunday evening. So I will send you a reminder of that. And I'll also send you a replay of this webinar when it is available. But thank you so much for staying around until the end. You've been a great audience here. You've been great asking questions and comments and all these things. It's my privilege to be able to educate and to share and teach for you. And I really do. It makes my day. You know, it's a passion for me. And I'm only able to do that because of amazing new entrepreneurs who are creating great products every single day and working hard to get them into the hands of new customers and new backers. So thank you very much for joining.